love spending money on things that used to cost less? No? Well, welcome to the 2025 housing market. Grab your overpriced coffee, and today we're going to talk about what's coming next, because ignorance, unlike housing, is still free. So the 2025 housing market is shaping to be really unpredictable. Is it going to crash? Is it going to stabilize? Things are getting more expensive, right? With Trump now being elected, how's that going to shape everything? So in this video, I'm going to cover 5 crucial predictions that you should know about to make a better and informed decision. And in the end, I'm going to cover some key mistakes a lot of people make when it comes to these weird markets. All right, so the first prediction is interest rates. Right now, we're expecting mortgage rates to dip below 6%, which is going to make borrowing slightly less painful. And there's some downsides to this, and I'm going to cover that in a second. And lower rates might expand the buyer pool, but increasing demand, and it's going to increase competition. But why, right? So right now, a lot of people are saying interest rates are high. They're not. And hear me out. I'm going to get a lot of crap for this. I already know. Interest rates are higher, but they're not high. When you say something is high, you're comparing it to something, right? So what a lot of people are comparing it to is during COVID, rates were 2 to 3%, right? For a mortgage, like really cheap. And that was an anomaly. And all of our opinions, like all the professional opinions, all the economists and the mortgage people are saying, look, it's not gonna happen again. In the last 25 years, the average mortgage rate was 7.5%. And I know my handwriting's trash, forgive me. But that was the average rate. Right now, rates are like between 6.5 and 7.5. Honestly, for mortgage rates, we're in a pretty normal market. Everything has gone up and everything's more expensive. So it just feels like it's expensive. And I get it. Like, I know it's frustrating because there's a lot of things, a lot of reasons to complain. But right now, this is pretty normal. So here's why lower rates might not always be the best thing. Yes, it's going to increase affordability, but it's going to flood the market with a lot of buyers. And why that's not the best thing is because now there's already like 50 buyers gunning for the same house, like in most markets, because there's just not a lot of inventory, which is prediction number 2. I'll talk about in a second. But because of lack of inventory and with buyer demand pretty high already, when rates drop, what that's going to do is that's going to increase the buyer demand. So a lot more people now are not only going to be able to have like a better purchasing power, but because of all the demand, it's actually going to increase the purchase price, because when you're gunning for the same house and there's all these people bidding for it, naturally it drives up the price, right? So keep that in mind that when rates go down, which we're expecting next year, things are going to get really competitive, more competitive than they are now. So let's look at a graph that helps explain what I'm talking about. So right here on the left-hand side, you have the max purchase price right over here. And then on the bottom, you're going to see all the payments, right? So these payments are the maximum payment that you could afford, and that does not include taxes and insurance. This is assuming you're putting 5% down, by the way. Okay. So notice how, I know the graph might be confusing, but notice how when the rate goes up for every 1%, there's an 11% drop in buying power. For example, let's say your max mortgage payment is $2,000. You're like, okay, Ben, you know, you're giving me a mortgage, I want to buy a house, but I don't want to exceed $2,000. At a 4.5% interest rate, your max purchase price is almost $500K if you look right over here, okay? Notice how if the interest rate is 6%, your buying power suddenly goes down to $425,000 roughly. And I shouldn't even say buying power, I should say what you're comfortable with. But even if that's what you can get approved for, it's sort of the same thing, right? So notice the difference here, how from a almost $500,000 purchase price, your power or what you're qualified for or what you're comfortable with is limited by almost $100,000, right, in purchase price, simply because of the change in interest rate, right? So keep in mind that when rates dip, and we're not expecting a 3% rate, but we might expect rates in the 5s for a conventional 30-year mortgage, that's going to increase the amount of people that are going to want to buy, because now their purchasing power is going to go up. Okay, Ben, so with rates, like what does that mean for me? What can I do? Well, historically, falling rates lead to a spike in demand. And so a lot of people suddenly realize they need a house that they can quite afford. So because you can qualify for more doesn't mean you should purchase more. Keep that in mind. 2025 might be your year as a buyer, but act fast, because while rates might drop, so are your chances of snagging a deal once competition heats up. Like I mentioned earlier, as rates go down, the demand for people that want to invest in real estate or buy mortgages or buy houses is also going to increase. Okay, but what about housing? Let's talk a little bit about inventory. So right now, we're seeing new construction struggling because of the supply chain delays and labor shortages. Right now, it's really hard to find work. My dad's a GC, and I can attest to this, that just finding laborers right now in this market, like good laborers, is pretty difficult. Homeowners with low interest rates are staying put, which is locking up existing inventory. What that means is the reason why a lot of people aren't selling is because they refinanced or they bought and they got a 2 to 3% interest rate on their mortgage, okay? Now, the next thing is investors will have a harder time finding undervalued properties in such a tight market. I made a video earlier that as an investor, you want to target the 10 to 15% of houses that are available on the market because really those are the investor opportunities. But because labor costs have gone up, materials have increased, it's getting even more difficult for margins to be there or for it to make sense to do like a fix and flip, really. It takes longer to see the ROI because inventory is tight, so you don't have a lot of options, right? When supply is low, that increases what? The purchase price, or then increases the value just naturally, right? That's why airplane tickets go up in certain high peak seasons because they know that the demand is there. So same thing with this issue. Same thing here. We have a lot of investors, a lot of home buyers looking to buy, but because of inventory, it's just making it even more difficult. Hey, are you finding value in this video so far? If you are, can you do me a favor and subscribe? I'm really trying to grow this thing. And as a mortgage loan officer, I want to continue to provide valuable information to help people make an informed decision. I'll put my contact info in the description. So if you want to reach out, if you have any questions at all, be sure to reach out there. The National Association of Realtors predicts that inventory levels will stay below historical averages in 2025, meaning we're all fighting over the same crumbs, right? It's still going to be pretty difficult. Even as rates go down, that might entice some more sellers to put their house on the market, and that might ease up inventory just a little bit. But just know that we're not suddenly building a ton of houses. There's not like all this land being found that we can build on. So in a lot of metropolitan areas like Chicago, Nashville, Austin, it's pretty difficult. They're especially struggling with inventory. So here's a graph that visually explains what I'm talking about. In 2007, when the market crashed, there was a huge supply of inventory, over 4 million, right? Now in 2023, 2024 data is still coming out, but we had 1.08 million, right? A huge decrease in inventory, right? So one of the reasons why the market crashed in 2008 is because there was a lot of inventory and the demand wasn't there. So all these houses were just sitting. And on top of that, mortgages were just not good loans. So we had bad loans being issued and we had all this excess inventory, as you can see here, right? So just know that if buying's on the horizon or if investing's on the horizon, you have to be patient because in some markets, it's taking a lot longer to find the property that you want. That's why I would recommend prepare now, like prepare ahead of time. So that way you're not scrambling to find a house before your lease is up or before school starts for your kids. Other advice that I have with that is get pre-approved ahead of time. Like know what your buying power looks like and get ready to pounce, to get ready to move. If you're hesitant, it's going to equal heartbreak. Now, one more thing too is your realtor can help you with this. I would look at more off-market deals, okay? Finding inventory on Zillow is like expecting to win the lottery with a fortune cookie number. Everybody's looking on Zillow. But if you can have that realtor that has access to the off-market deals, which all of them do, then that'll really help you find the extra properties. So the third prediction that's really important for the housing market is the buyer demand. Right now, millennials and Gen Z prioritize affordability, remote-friendly locations and suburban lifestyles, right? They want Wi-Fi. and nowadays ever since COVID, a lot of people are working remotely. So downtown markets like Chicago are kind of struggling because people are like, I don't have to pay all this money to live downtown. I can just move out in the suburbs or move somewhere not as expensive and keep my same high paying job, right? Some companies are making you like work in the office, but you get the point. So with that, urban areas might lose demand because they're flocking to suburbs and rural regions. Higher interest rates might push some would-be buyers into renting, which is still going to boost demand for rentals. What's really great about being an investor right now is that no matter what, if the market's good, the market's bad, wow, my handwriting's trash. But if the market's good or bad, you can still have high rental demand because people are always going to need to rent, right? So if home prices go up or if things are more expensive, then people are going to like maybe want to rent, right? And if the market crashes and people want to sell their houses or they don't want to like live in a house anymore, they want to rent. Well, either way, it's a win-win, right? So just something to keep in mind. Another thing that's really important to know is 65% of first-time home buyers in a recent survey said that they prioritize affordability over location, proving that you can live anywhere as long as there's DoorDash. So affordability is taking precedence over the exact location. Location is still important for some, but if it makes sense and it's affordable, people are willing to kind of move around their needs or wants checklist to make sure that it's affordable. Another thing that people aren't talking about is what is the average age that people are buying or investing in real estate, okay? Now, home buyers, the average home buyer age is 33. So when people turn 33, that's where they're usually buying a house, okay? So what's interesting is in 1973, a lot of people were having babies, right? And so we know that the average age is, low 30s, so 33 was what the data point was showing, but they were born in 1973. In 2006 was when buyer demand started to go up, right? Because a lot of people turned 33. But because of a lot of other reasons, the market still crashed, okay? It wasn't enough because of how much inventory there was. Now look here, in 1990, there was another increase in how many people were born. And so we're noticing that people are turning, in 2023, a lot of people were turning 33. Right now, it's 2024 at the end of the year. This is important because there's a lot of pent-up demand. People still bought in 2024, but not as much. What we're expecting in 2025 is there to be a huge demand for people that want to buy because they held off for so long, and a lot of them just don't want to wait anymore. So what does that really mean for you? My advice is target investments in suburban areas if you're an investor with strong job growth and lifestyle amenities. That's what people want. And then also focus on multifamily properties because you can benefit from the rising rental demand because landlords are winning while everyone else is renting. Another thing too is if you're buying in the suburbs, I would plan to start looking like now. It's going to take you like 6 to 12 months to find a house in the suburbs because everybody's moving to the suburbs. Another key point to note is that in the wintertime, the home prices are usually 10% cheaper, okay? So a lot of things are going to be cheaper in the fall and the winter months when things are slow because everybody is moving between April and June, right? Because they want to move before vacation, or they want to stop, or because school starts in August, so people want to get ready. That's why a lot of demand and a lot of competition is around these months because everybody else is also doing that. So if you want to make it easier for yourself, try to buy when not everybody else is buying. The fourth prediction is home prices, which is really important. So right now, there's slower price growth in some markets, but high demand cities will continue to see upward pressure. I'm seeing this in Chicago, homes keep appreciating because there's so much demand. There's limited inventory right now, as we talked about, especially in areas with strong job markets and population growth. The next thing is that investors need to pivot from rapid appreciation to focusing on cash flow, which is really difficult right now with the cost of things going up. What we're trying to do is teach people on how to do forced appreciation, which is really important. I made a video about it. But the next thing is that Zillow predicts a price growth of a moderate 2 to 4% annually, but some cities will continue to boom because everyone wants a slice of Nashville apparently. But one thing that's really, really important to know is for all you people that are going to hate me for saying this, the market is not going to crash. And let me tell you why. A lot of us like to focus on 2007 to 2011. If you guys look right here where I'm circling, there was only, in the last 80 years, there was only 7 years where prices did not increase when they actually went down. Notice how right here, 1990, 1991, there wasn't a huge price increase. We have 2007 to 2011. And then 2020, 2021, 2022, we still saw home prices go up. Now, the home price growth might slow, but every year, year over year, home prices will continue to go up. 1943 to 1947, prices compounded 118%. Prices went higher for 43 straight years. 74 through 79, prices compounded 93%. Then prices went higher for 10 years before going down 1% in 1990, then another 14 positive years, and then everyone focuses on 2007 and 2011, right? So that's why I'm saying because there's not a lot of supply, it's impossible for the market to crash. There's just too much demand. I know how bad you want the market to crash, but unfortunately, things are going to hold steady because there's just no other option economically. So what I would do is focus on markets where prices are stabilizing, but rental demand remains strong as an investor, right? So Austin, Chicago, Nashville, multi-unit properties in my market in Chicago are really big, so I'd focus on that. And then avoid overly speculative investments in areas where prices have outpaced reality, right? AKA trendy vacation towns. We see this a lot, especially when Airbnb was coming up. Like a lot of people were buying in crazy areas. Airbnb got cracked down on, and now it's basically worthless. So in areas with HOAs, in specific vacation towns, the prices can be very, very volatile. In markets for my market, like in Chicago, it's just steadily going up because there's just a lot of demand and growth. The fifth and final prediction is looking at the big picture. So how does this all come together, right? So inflation is going to increase the cost for both buyers and investors. So budgeting is really important. Getting with a loan officer like me to make sure that, hey, Are we budgeting? Are we going to have some money left over every month? And are we going to be comfortable financially? Regional hotspots are going to emerge in cities with a lot of diverse economies and job growth. There's opportunities in every market. You honestly just have to look for them. A lot of people like to wait when there's enough blood on the streets, is what investors are saying. Honestly, right now, you just have to know where to look. Historically, areas with strong job markets and affordable housing weather economic storms better. So choose your investments wisely. What I like to go for is like buying properties near hospitals or near schools, right? You want to look at where are there big developments, where are there job growths happening, because that's going to give you strong rental demand. So as an investor, that's what you look for. But as a home buyer too, just know that that's going to drive up your purchase price, especially when you're buying in areas where there's really good schools. There's the 4 largest life expenses. And if you've gotten this far, bonus points for you, but there's housing, taxes, education, and healthcare. Now, real estate solves all of these. If you can have a good portfolio, if you're investing in real estate, you can cover housing, especially with house hacking. You can take care of taxes with write-offs and with rental income. You can eventually pay for education and eventually for healthcare with the cash flow. But I know that that's unrealistic for a lot of people. If you want to learn more, my contact info is in the description. I can help you solve these 4 largest life expenses. So what does this all mean for me going forward? I would focus on growing regions with diverse economies if you're investing. Bonus, if there's a good taco scene, you deserve something for surviving this market. And then stay flexible and keep cash reserves ready. I would avoid being house poor. A lot of people are spending all their money into buying a house. I wouldn't advise that. Uncertainty isn't a strategy, but preparation is. So control what you can control, okay? Home prices are going up. Rates are what they're at. They're up, they're down. You can't control that, but what you can control is spending wisely and working with a good loan officer like me to make the best decisions. You know what's worse than missing out on a house? Buying one that you can't afford. So don't be that person. Rising rates is going to make affordability a lot more difficult. So what I would do is budget. If you can have 6 months of reserves in the bank account after you pay down payment and closing costs, that's really going to help you. Another thing too is over leveraging, because it could lead to financial strain and make your conditions worse. So don't overexpose yourself to debt that you don't need. So that's your 2025 housing market in a nutshell. It could be as unpredictable as a telenovela, but just know that if you're preparing ahead of time, whether you're an investor or a home buyer, that's the difference between a lot of people. Getting pre-approved early, having a budget, having 6 months to 12 months of reserves is really going to put you in a better position than most people that just think last minute and they want to invest or buy real estate. If you're serious about scaling your real estate portfolio or leveraging your equity, I made a video about the best refinancing strategies. You can click it here on how to leverage your equity to be able to scale and become financially free. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.